All right, so we have a new episode of Legends and Leaders, and today it's great to have you here to get into your story of the creation of Equinox, the Inside Out movement, and now your new company, Movejoy, which is taking the experiences that you've had and combining the fitness and the experiences with fitness, as well as mental health and spirituality, and putting this together and creating a new type of program that gives people the opportunity to connect in a different way and taking care of both the mental and the physical. So I'm looking forward to getting into your story, and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Ben, for having me.
Awesome. So where did your passion for entrepreneurship and fitness come from? How did that begin? Did you always want to be an entrepreneur when you were young? Was there some sort of experience you had with fitness? Like, where did that start?
So first of all, when I was young, that wasn't even a word. Like nobody even talked about an entrepreneur. Like I feel like that word didn't even come into existence until I don't know, somewhere around the 2000. All of a sudden you started hearing that word. Prior to that was you were just somebody that liked to create. It was like something where you had that in you. I mean, I think I was very lucky that I had parents that I guess today we would call them somewhat entrepreneurial. But my dad, they were workers. My dad had delicatessens in New York City. And at a very young age, I would go to work with him, myself and my brothers. I'm one of 6 children. And my
Nice.
mom had 5 kids in 2.5 years because she had 2 sets of twins.
Wow.
And when we were off from school, she couldn't have all 6 kids home. I mean, she would have gone crazy. So she used to say to my dad, Danny, you're going to take the 3 big ones with you to work. And the truth of it was, I loved going to work with him. There was something about going into the deli and seeing, like, there was action, there was like action and people were coming in, and I used to love watching everything from what the people wore in New York City to the way they spoke to just watching how they bought things. I just found it. I remember looking, at a young age, using the cash register and learning how to do it. And then I loved being able to add it up and not needing the cash register, like being able to add it up in my mind, So it was just like, I found that transaction of money and people and buying like very interesting. And even just work, I feel like when you have a good work ethic, like work ethic is part of being an entrepreneur, because I know for certain is you're going to work harder as an entrepreneur than as anything else ever in your life. Like if you don't have like that unstoppable work ethic, it becomes an issue. It's a problem, So I feel very lucky that I grew up in that, and I kind of understood that you work hard, you make money, you have success, like that was kind of the thread. And regardless to fitness, and of course as a kid, you don't climb trees and play hopscotch and jump rope and think, oh, I'm into fitness. No, like you're into play, you play, right? And that's what it was for me as a youngster. Like being very active and moving a lot was what brought me a lot of joy. I was the kid that was outside. Even if I was playing hopscotch by myself, I was outside playing hopscotch. I was outside jump roping, or we used to have these things called footsies, and I was out there playing with footsies. Or, I mean, we had a really nice sized backyard, and I was up back there running or rolling on the grass to see how fast I could get across there. Or, like being physical was just part of my DNA. Moving. And then at a young age, about 5, I started dancing. And, that I feel like was a godsend because it created so much discipline in me. Just this discipline that was created around dancing and practicing and, making sure that every week I went into my next class knowing, the choreography and just getting better. So I really, I have a lot of fond, beautiful memories of my childhood around movement and around dance. And and around community, because I'd go to dance school and I had a whole separate community there. I had my whole dance community, and I loved that. Like, I loved having all these different pockets of people in my life. And I remember when I had a dear friend when we were opening up Equinox, and she said, well, it would just make sense that the Erricos would do that because their basement had a gym in it, and everybody would come over and work out. Before, I mean, my dad bought this, it was called Universal Equipment. And our basement was really that, like, everyone would just come over in high school and work out. And we had mats, and we had recumbent bikes. I mean, we just had stuff to work out. And he goes, it makes sense that they would have a gym, and it would have all people coming in there, and it would be part of building a community, right? So yeah, so much was organic, again, work ethic, loving to move, being that person, that person that loved movement and loved community. And I loved all the things that made for that to be a successful business. It was like check, 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 so yeah, that was really a big part of my youth and my teenage years, when other people were young teenagers were possibly doing drugs or doing other things. I wasn't. Was going into New York City to dance. I was so it was my whole life, like movement and dancing and yeah, performing and being with people. That was just my life, and then when it was time to go to college, I moved around a little bit. I probably would have loved to have gone to USC right out of high school, but my parents thought it was too far for me to go from New Jersey to California. So I had to make a couple stops till I finally got there, my junior year. And by that time, I loved fitness. A girlfriend of mine took me to a Jane Fonda workout. And I loved it. And because I was a dancer, I was able to have that whole class memorized. So, and then before I knew it, I just started teaching at different places. And I even started a little program at USC where, I made flyers and I put them at all the sorority houses. And then people would come and take my class. It was donation only. And I had a boom box and I would just set it in this atrium area where they were like, fine, do it there. So it was, I guess that was considered entrepreneurial, right? Yeah. So it was always aligned, it was always aligned with what felt right. I even remember having an acting teacher say to me, I was in Edinburgh. I was doing shows over there for the summer. And during that month that we were there, I taught classes to all of the actors. And I remember him pulling aside, he pulls me aside and he says, you know how confident you are when you're out there teaching? And I said, yeah. He goes, I need you to be that on the stage as an actress. He goes, you are so that is your domain, and I thought, wow, that's where I felt the most comfortable. If I was moving my body around people, doing that. And for me, once we started Equinox, it wasn't about me teaching. I kind of stopped doing that, but it was about the joy that I got out of watching other people find joy in working out. Because especially in 1990, when we opened Equinox, I would say that it was only 5% of the country actually worked out. Working out is relatively new. It's not something that people were doing other than athletes or people that needed to be fit for their job, in front of the camera and news journalists, things like that. But the average person was just not working out at that time, and certainly not consistently. And what I loved is when we would take a person who was a non-worker outer, a non-fitness person, and in 6 months, they were like, I love this. I love this class. I love doing this. And they were so into it. I mean, that brought me a ridiculous amount of joy to see people actually feel the way I felt, like moving my body was like natural and it was my happiest place, right, to be.
Huh.
So when I would see people do that, it just was so fun and so exciting. And it really, I loved it.
Right. So you basically, this was your passion, right? You were involved in dance and fitness and you came from an entrepreneurial family. At what point did you kind of have this, like, was it even like a eureka type of moment? Like, when did you like have this idea where you're like, hey, we need to open up our own gym. We need to make it fun. We need to make it club-esque and have people come in and want to go to this, be in this environment. And also like, why come up with the subscription model for it? Like, why have it be like that? It was it kind of just because that's what some clubs were doing, like why open it up in that type of way?
So first of all, we were all living, it was myself and my two brothers. We were living in Manhattan. At the time, I was working for a big cosmetic company. I was an executive with Lancome, and my brothers were entrepreneurs. They were doing different projects, all different kinds of businesses in New York. And we were kind of complaining for a while. We lived on 69th and Broadway, and we were just kind of lamenting all the time about somebody needs to open up a great gym. Like, somebody needs to open up a great gym. There were just these it was like a little hole in the wall, down in the basement, kind of dirty bodybuilding gym that was about 10 blocks away. And then there was like a aerobic studio that was kind of hip and cool, but all it had was classes. And then everything else was just like places that as a younger person, hipper person, you didn't want to go. Like, there were people walking around with like, suit socks on and barefoot, walking around the gym. Not for me. So at first we were just kind of really like complaining about it. And then, we kind of, it happened really organically. Like, my brothers were doing something in construction. And one of the guys from, I believe, a tile company said, hey, you guys are gym guys, because my brothers were big and worked out. We have this gym that went out of business and it's completely done. And you guys look at it and check it out. Maybe you open up a gym business. And that's kind of how it started. We looked at it and it was outside of New York City. We didn't call it Equinox. So that was kind of like our proof of concept that we could do something, right? And did that up there, and it worked out great. It was pretty amazing, actually. And then it just kept going. We were very lucky because even though we all did a lot of things, everything kind of crossed over, like everybody. I'm very lucky that my family, everybody has a lot of genius, right? Like, this one's amazing at the real estate and getting the money and putting that all together. And my brother Vito does the most beautiful designs, gorgeous builder design. I was, like I told you, my passion. So when you put us all together, it was pretty like, whoo, we really had it covered, right? And we crossed over on other things too. We didn't just stay in our lanes. We were constantly doing whatever any hat that had to be had. Like, every hat, any hat, it didn't matter. Whatever needed to be done, we did. So yeah, and then we had an opportunity. We were looking on the Upper West Side because that's where we lived. We were like, something needs to be here. And that's when we found something about 10 blocks, not even 7 blocks from where we were living. We found a place. We knew it was going to be a grand slam home run because we knew we wanted that gym. And we knew other else that wanted. We had already had talked to people and knew that this would be something. Yeah. And then we were able to get that up and going. And I'm probably making it sound a lot easier than it was because years ago. But yeah, I do feel that the stars were aligned. I feel like everything, the stars were aligned to get in there and open that gym. And it was a very small gym at first. It was only I think it was 7,500 or 7,700 square feet. It wasn't very big. And we just kept expanding. Like every year, not even every year, like every 6 months, we expanded and we went bigger, and then we went upstairs, and then we went up all the way upstairs. And at one point, I think on 76th Street, we were in 3 different buildings. It was piecemeal where we finally had an amazing size gym. And then after that, we were just opening up pretty much a gym a year. And then from there, we went from not just being an Equinox fitness club, but then we opened up spas, and we opened up a Medi Spa, and we opened up wellness centers, and we collaborated with physical therapy. So we started doing our own line of clothing. We did our own vitamin line. Like it wasn't just about opening more clubs, just the brand just kept expanding and expanding, and more merchandise. And we created an amazing weight loss program, and we created these other programs called Peak 10, which were really about personal training. And then we created a whole Equinox Fitness Training Institute. Like we just kept going and going and going. It was amazing. I mean, again, it just felt like the way we did it, and and it really wasn't just the magic of the 3 of us, because honestly, it was the magic of who we attracted. Like we attracted the most amazing people that worked with us, not for us. They worked with us. Like they brought so much magic. It was really this collaboration of all of us together that really made us really special.
So, you decided, I think, to sell it in 2006 to the related companies. It was.
No. We sold it before that.
Okay.
We finally got out then.
Oh, got out. Okay.
We had sold it. I want to say, I always mess up dates, but I think it was around 2001.
Okay.
2000, the beginning of, it was around January. It was the end of December, January, going into 2001. And we sold it. And but we still had some agreements and things like that. So then when it was resold, that was when we completely got out of everything.
So I heard that, like, once it was resold at that point in 2006, that it was I mean, you were in a better financial position, of course, but mentally it was very different for you because you had so much purpose tied in with Equinox and building it up, and that was like that was your everyday. But even then, you still had a role, and you still had commitments. So at that point, like, how did you go from being in a different sort of state of mind that was less ideal to pulling yourself out of that and kind of making way for what you're doing now?
So first of all, when I went through that really challenging part that you're talking about, I'm sure you've heard me talk about this, or you've heard it on something, but it was really when we sold Equinox the first time in 2001. And I really pushed. I want you to understand, I pushed for that sale. Like it wasn't like I was like, oh, maybe we shouldn't sell. I was like, no, we're selling. Like, really long, hard 10 years, like working, going, creating more people, more clubs. Like, I mean, so many, the staff, and it was really very, it was a family. And we treated it that way, the energy of it, we were professional, but it was very like, we cared about everyone that worked with us. It was just very, it was a lot. And plus I was a mom, to juggle that even a little bit, which, that's a whole other story. And, but when we sold, I really thought, honestly, Ben, I thought every day was going to be like, every day I was going to wake up being like, what? This is life. I just thought like this amazing. And the truth of it was we sold at the end of December. And then we went in, we cleaned out our desks. And so we started the new year. We all went on vacation, and I came back in January, and I took my son to drop off at school. He was in third grade, and I'm walking there, and I'm leaving. I'm talking to some of the moms, and all of a sudden I go to turn around, and I look, and all of a sudden the entire playground just went like this. It was like it went in, and my ears felt very muffled. It was like, and I'm walking, and I'm like thinking to myself, what's happening to me? I didn't know if I mean, I was the queen of wellness. I mean, I was, poster child wellness for like, and I'm walking out thinking like, having a heart attack? Like, am I having a stroke? Like, I didn't know what, everything just went. And I walked home, and I literally got into bed, and I later learned that I was having this like identity crisis. Like, I was paralyzed because I've been my whole life, I just was going. Like, my whole identity wasn't just about Equinox. It was always about everything I did, from a little girl, from getting grades in school and being a dancer and performing, and then going here, and then going to college, and then working and making money and going. And, it was always this doing machine. My whole identity was always based on everything I did, and my successes and my accolades, and more successes and more accolades. And it was like, all of a sudden, it was like, I had this major identity crisis, because now like I was so lost. I went into this deepest, if somebody would have told me I would have sold Equinox and went into a deep depression, I would have been like, no way. Like, I'm not, I'll wake up happy every day. Like, I'm that person. I don't even need a cup of coffee. So it was definitely, I went through a challenge. I did some deep work for quite a few years to kind of figure out what that was, all of it, and how my whole, like I say, like how my whole identity was never about my heart and my spirit. And it was always about everything, all my accomplishments, everything I did. That's just what made me feel whole and complete, not just the essence of who I am as a human and my heart. And, I never spent time on that, thinking in those terms. It was always about, you have a goal, and you work for your goal, and you meet your goal. And it was that kind of a life. So when I finally had a time to like look at it, it was like, whoa, whoa. So that was really the part of Inside Out that started to come forth, because in my inside journey, I realized that's where happiness is. That's where joy is. Now, not that those things aren't meaningful. However, we can do both the same. We can take the time and hold the space to be in touch with our heart, what our feelings, what makes us like, what is really inspiring us. Like I say to entrepreneurs, like, what's really inspiring you to do this? And so often they aren't able to acknowledge what that is. So yeah, it was a very interesting journey. And yeah, and then I wanted other people, for me, I guess I realized I am just like the steward of sharing, like I loved fitness. So I wanted everybody else to love fitness. Then I fell in love with personal development and working on myself and getting clarity and understanding that in order to be healthy, you have to be spiritually healthy, mentally healthy, emotionally healthy, and physically healthy, and today I would probably add physically healthy, so all of that makes for a whole of health, where in the Equinox days, I believed if you were fit, you were healthy, and that was so not true.
So what are
So
you trying to do now with Movejoy that's different that kind of takes this into account?
So Movejoy really came out of a couple of things. First, it came out of having a group of women, entrepreneurs, people that I've known for years I've been in different groups. And when COVID started, we started seeing each other online.
Mhm.
And and what I was noticing is every time we would get online, I would notice these women. At first, it was like, oh, this is kind of nice. We get a few days off or relaxed, we're going to have time to. And then, like 3 weeks later, you notice them and they're just like glazed over. And
Ugh.
then a month later, you realize they're just like depressed and oh, like, when is this going to end? And most of these women were over 50, living alone. They're divorced, and I'm just watching this and I'm like, whoa, like I can just see their life force diminishing. And I was like, okay, ladies, like we have to like shift this. We have to shift this energy. So of course I start telling them different places they can start going to work out online. Like, why don't you try this person and try this and try this? And I'm sending everybody links to all these different workouts and movement and some breath work that I like. And a week later or 2 weeks later, when we're on, how did it go? Oh, that wasn't for me. That was like too hit training. I don't like that. That was too fast. Like they had excuses for everything. And so then finally, one of the women said, because I was actually hosting a dance class online that I was paying the instructor to teach. And then I invited whoever wanted to come on and dance could. But it was a more advanced dance class. So the only people that were really getting on were dancers, but they saw that I was doing that and they were like, why don't you teach a class for us? And at
Huh.
first, honest, and I thought like, honey, that's been a long time. Like I've hung up my leg warmers and dance shoes for that. But then I was watching and I thought, you know what, let me see if I can help these women do this. And before I knew it, we started doing it and on Zoom. And then during COVID, you went from 4 people to 6 people to 8 people to 10 people to 20 people to 30. Like it just kind of grew, and everybody was inviting their friends and their family and their this, and it was amazing. But the thing that I was noticing that was the most amazing was the community that was happening. Everybody was getting on early or late. They were getting on and they were staying on and they were talking to each other and they were sharing different recipes, and there was a community being built. And I was like,
Huh.
wow, there's really something to this. They're moving. And the other thing is, I literally saw, because once I started doing my research, like there's just not a lot of stuff out there for women, I'd say over 50, that's really fun. Like most of
Mm.
the workouts, or it's either because you want to get ripped and have this like major 6-pack and everything, or
Mm.
it's really boring. Like I feel like since Richard Simmons disappeared, which I'm not even sure if you know who he is, but
Yeah.
he was this man that just got women that were a bit older, more mature, a little bit, more Zoftic figures. He got them moving and they felt
Mm.
so good about themselves. They were moving their body and enjoying the movement. And I thought, like, somebody needs to bring this energy back, so that, because we move as we're older, we move for one reason. We move to feel good. Like movement is about feeling good, like, yes, we could all go on these diets and keto and this and that for your son's wedding or daughter's wedding to get really skinny. But at the end of the day, that's not sustainable.
Mm.
What keeps us coming back at a certain age is because, like, we just feel really, really good. And I realized there wasn't anything out there that was really speaking to that demographic, making the movement fun, where you like I have women on here because we had a pre-beta, we're getting ready to start our beta. I have women on here that the thought of working out, like they hated it, they loathed it. It was a 4-letter
Mm.
word. I got to work out. And now they're like, oh, they can't wait. Like, even I do it 3 days a week. and a lot of them would be texting me the end of like Wednesday saying, is there any chance you could train with us on Thursday too? Like, but these are women who in the past hated moving. Like it was not pleasurable. So yeah, I just realized like there's something here to this, to moving in this way that again isn't about how many calories are you burning and what are you eating, how do you feel? How do you feel, you know? And then how do you connect? So what this will be is there'll be these movements, there'll be these movement classes, and then at the end of the class, there will be chat rooms that people can go in and connect with other women. You know, they will be chat rooms for people that are going through difficult times, people that want to just connect with women, people that want to, you know, talk about dating over 50, people that want to like, what does it mean to be wild and alive and feel good about aging and not feel like horrible? Because let's face it, out there in the world, the only people that really talk to women over 50 are like dermatologists, plastic surgeons, you know, nutritionists. Like nobody else really talks to this demographic. It's like we're the ones that are supposed to just like disappear. You know, like we're just supposed to disappear, even though honestly, we are actually the ones that are spending so much money, but nobody really caters. We have to be the ones that just adapt. You know, the clothing, not made for the 50 plus, but we have to figure out how to make it work. You know, so it's like now I want to create something that is designed for us. It's designed for us to celebrate us, to have fun, to find joy, to get excited about, you know, moving forward in our life, not feel shame because we're not as beautiful as we used to be, but like to celebrate. I'm going to celebrate every wrinkle I have. Like I earn them. I feel good about it, you know, to really help the women like get grounded in how beautiful we are as we age and not feel this weird taboo about it, you know? So it's
Well,
exciting.
I think that's pretty much all the questions, you know, that I had. And I'll just wrap it up. But, you know, I love your story. I think it's a really great story. And what you're doing now is, you know, you're kind of like what you did early on. You had a problem yourself. You felt like there was nobody taking advantage to create some sort of solution. There's other people that have this problem. I'm going to go out there and do it. And it's that go, go, go mentality that you're carrying into Movejoy. So I'm excited to see, you know, what you create here and hope it affects a lot of people's lives positively, just like you did with Equinox and the other ventures that you've been in. So I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you so much, Ben. It's a pleasure.